White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the U.S. had seen no sign that the Russian president was preparing to use nuclear weapons.
That we've seen nothing that would indicate Mr. Putin is preparing to use tactical nuclear weapons in any way whatsoever in Ukraine. And I can also tell you that we haven't seen anything that would cause us to change our own strategic nuclear deterrent posture.
Well, Arise special correspondent Karl Bostic has been monitoring developments, and he joins me now from our studios in London. Good to see you, Karl. So Russia's veiled threats about the use of nuclear weapons have now become more explicit, with Mr. Putin announcing that he intends to station tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine's northern neighbor, Belarus. Tell us about the reaction to that. We've been hearing from NATO and from the US.
That's right, Charles. Actually, you know what? There are a lot of moving parts to this, because it's not only just what Vladimir Putin was saying over the weekend. It was a TV interview, and he was asked basically about his response to an announcement by the UK government here in London that they'd be sending Ukraine armor-piercing rounds of depleted uranium. And that's what kind of really sparked his response. The fact that he would be sending nuclear warheads to Belarus. That's a reason why he said it. But to put things in a longer context, Charles, this goes back to a year of just nothing but constant saber rattling. Ahead of the February invasion, you actually had the Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko saying that he would change the constitution to allow Russia to base nuclear warheads there. You had Vladimir Putin saying that Russia would go to nuclear high alert once the invasion began. Well, none of that really happened. Perhaps what would be most importantly, significant is when you have the National Security Council spokesman, Charles, John Kirby, saying that we've seen no indication of movement of nuclear warheads. The reason why this is important, Charles, is that, Russia has about maybe 2,000 tactical nuclear warheads, 2,000, all right? But if they move it to another country, another territory, where are you going to put them? How are you going to maintain them? How are you going to operate that? The most they've done right now so far, there are 10 Russian warplanes now in Belarus that are nuclear capable. They don't have those storage sites ready yet. They don't have trained Belarusian personnel to take care of that. He set himself a very, very tight deadline of having all this done by July 1st. As some observers indicate, you've got a storage facility of nuclear warheads in Kaliningrad, near the Baltic states, where it's been still under years of preparation to store them. So it's a matter of storage, it's about a maintenance. But then finally, Charles, it's really this, or one or two other points to make a point of. It really has no immediate impact on the situation in Ukraine. The things that Russia needs to do, especially even with tactical nuclear weapons, it can already do from Russian territory. So why does it need to go to Belarus? At worst, it's a threat to countries bordering Belarus that are NATO members, such as Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. So there's more saber rattling there. And then finally, Charles, so only a week ago when we spoke, when Vladimir Putin was hosting Xi Jinping, where they issued a joint declaration saying that they were against the use of nuclear weapons in a war which should never be fought. And now you hear this quick turnaround 1 week later. And that really belies what really also is the underlying tone. I think this is a red line even for China, its most important partner, for Russia that is. China itself is against any nuclear weapons at all in this conflict. And then finally, Charles, these are tactical nuclear weapons. They're not weapons that can wipe out a city like Hiroshima during World War II. They're tactical weapons that can only cause a lot of havoc and damage on the ground in a battlefield situation.
Well, if I had a penny for every time you said finally there, Karl, you'd be a rich man right now. But just briefly, because we're almost out of time, what exactly is a tactical nuclear weapon, and how is it different from a regular nuclear weapon?
A tactical nuclear weapon, Charles, is more of a short-range weapon. It's a warhead. It can be fired even, through an artillery shell, okay? It can be fired from a missile system. Russia has sent Iskander missile systems to Belarus, but they do not have the warheads there. So it can be fired over short range. Those strategic nuclear weapons, those are the ones that can be fired thousands of miles away from a city and can wipe out an entire city. A tactical nuclear weapon can basically wipe out a battlefield, a target like that. But what it does cause radiation, but nothing like the catastrophic effects we saw in Hiroshima. But it cannot wipe out a city or town, but it can certainly wipe out a battlefield.
Thanks for that clarification, because that's what he's talking about, putting in Belarus tactical nuclear weapons. And Mr. Putin seems to think that there is nothing wrong in terms of international treaties in what he's doing. He says it will not violate nuclear proliferation agreements. Is he right? Briefly.
Well, that's a really technical thing, Charles. The short story is this. You have the Non-Proliferation Treaty of Nuclear Weapons. That was signed in 1968 at the height of the Cold War, when you had the U.S. against the Soviet Union, when you had nuclear weapons basically spread everywhere. So you still, because of that, you have U.S. Nuclear bombs in about 5 NATO countries, ranging from Germany, Italy, Belgium, and also Turkey as well. However, those sightings happened before that treaty in 1968, and that's when the Soviet Union still existed. When the Soviet Union collapsed in the mid-1990s, all of those nuclear weapons from places like Ukraine, Belarus, or Kazakhstan were repositioned in Russia. So during the height of the Cold War, the Soviet Union had no problem with those warheads there. And that's why you have that capability in Europe, because that happened at the height of the Cold War, and they were based before the Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968.
Karl, thank you. Karl Bostic, our special correspondent, talking to me there from our studios in London.